justice that was applied by early Muslims.
Yeah.
So would you agree that Umar applied justice, him being your second Khalif?
Yes.
Okay. You also talked earlier about the court system in this country, and you think that it's becoming more and more just because they don't discriminate.
I think it's... yeah, okay.
I mean, like, you can, for example, a Christian or Muslim can go in court and they will not discriminate what religion he believes.
Right.
And
I agree with that. Well, essentially, I think that that's what they're trying to achieve.
okay.
Right.
You would agree that to favour someone because of him being a Muslim or Christian is wrong. That is not justice.
It depends.
What do you mean? That would be
Well, I'll tell you what I mean. I'll explain exactly what I mean. Okay?
you disagreed with discrimination. Now you're saying
No, I didn't. If you listen to my talk and you were here for the whole of my talk, I said quite clearly, okay, that the aims and the objectives of the Islamic system is different. The ultimate injustice and the true injustice, what injustice means is to put something in its wrong place. So if you start saying that God became a man and got stuck on a cross and died, and God had a son, you have put something very much...
you mentioned about the justice that was applied by early Muslims.
Yeah.
So would you agree that Umar applied justice, him being your second Khalif?
Yes.
Okay. You also talked earlier about the court system in this country, and you
Example, if I know in this country, in this society, if I know, for example, that there is a factory that is spewing out poisonous fumes that is killing people and is going to make their babies mutilated in the most horrific and torturous way, but I just keep on ignoring it and I don't do something about it, we all agree that that's not a just government. So, no, you can't. Just let me finish, okay? So, well, if you don't want to have patience to listen to my answer, there's the door over there. You're quite welcome to leave, okay? If you don't want to hear the answer to the question, don't ask the question in the first place. It's my prerogative to take as long as I feel I need to answer the question properly. Well, you can go home. Goodbye. It's nice to talk to you, okay? And obviously, the fact is that I don't think you're even listening to my answer, so I don't see what's the point in responding to your question since you don't want to listen to my answer. So could you actually tell me what I've said so far?
Well, my question was,
Could you tell me what I've responded to your question, please? I just want to be sure that you're listening to what I'm saying and I'm not just wasting my breath.
Well, you moved away from my question.
Okay, so I think, excuse me, bro, if we could move on to someone else's question. Any more questions? Yeah.
I don't see exactly how different. I mean, we take this Islamic law.
Right.
And something that you would see as fundamentally wrong, and I know that there's small nuances, but something that would be wrong to other people that our law sees as right. I mean, I think they're quite similar. It makes sense that they're much more different.
What is different is the underlying philosophy. What is really fundamentally different is what underlies everything. That's what's different. Yes, we all agree that lying is bad, that killing is bad, that stealing is bad. I mean, every society is going to agree on some very core things that everyone is going to agree about without a doubt. Okay? I mean, what is going to differ, for example, is, well, how do we deal with that? That is different. Now, and also it's the priorities. For example, we know from the Cold War, from the time of communism, that communism as an ideology had a whole different set of principles than we do in the West. The Western perception of human rights, for example, is largely based upon individualism, individuality. The right of the individual, which is fair. We all recognize the individual has rights. But the West, generally, as a philosophy, gives the right of the individual almost... it is really the paramount. That's at the top. Individual, that is the supreme right. Whereas communism treats as the greatest crime is crime against society, crime against the state. Okay? Now, of course, in the West, when the communists were saying, oh, look at their human rights violations and this and that, whatever. But the fact is, they had a very different idea of what human rights were. Now, who's right and who's wrong? Why is the Western idea of human rights right, and the Chinese communist idea, or the Russian idea, or whoever idea is the wrong one? Who decides what's right and what's wrong? Well, we decide because we're the big guys and we're in charge and we've got the most power and the most authority, so our concept of human rights happens to dominate at the moment.
I think it comes back to what you said. I mean, it's not necessarily a right way. There's many
Well, that's
implemented badly.
Well, no, I think, yeah, but I think the point is this, it's a very, very interesting subject, it's a deep subject, but this is the point, okay? Everyone, I think, most people recognize that you have to draw some balance between the rights of the individual and the rights of society. No society allows an individual to be absolutely free to do whatever they like. You can't just go and kill anyone and say, well, you know, I felt like doing it, it made me feel good. Right? Okay, but we're laughing. But okay, let's take another scenario. Oh, there's a nice girl over there. I want to have sex with her. I'm married, right? And I've got kids, right? She's a nice bit older, right? Come on, let's go and have a look. Come on, whatever, right? Now, I'm not killing anyone. I'm just having a bit of harmless sex, a bit of fun. But it's not harmless at all. It's not harmless to my wife. It's not harmless to my kids. It's not harmless at all. In fact, more people may end up dying from me having sex with another person when I'm married, and more people may end up dying ultimately than if I just went and shot someone. Because it may mess up my kids, it may do this, it may do that, and as a consequence they will behave like that. Everything has consequences. But we human beings think, oh, you know, a bit of sex, bit of thing, well, what's this? So she gets upset, tough. Right? But if I shoot someone, bang, that's bad. It's all very black and white, but it's not black and white. That's the fact is, this human society is not like that. It's not black and white. Our actions and what their consequences are, we have very little understanding of them. Because the complexities of it are so enormous. And that's philosophically why Islam says the only one who has the right to determine what is the balance between individual freedom and social responsibility, the only one who knows that is God. I mean, ultimately, the question is going to be, well, how do I know your religion's from God? And that's just a matter of conviction, you know. That's, I believe it, and I believe it because of A, B, C, D, E, F, G, right? And for me, they're stronger personally than whatever reasons the West wants to offer me that their system is the best system. But this is the problem. Do you understand what I'm saying? So, but from our point of view, God understands that. So, for example, why are adulterers and adulteresses stoned to death? Well, for the very reason that adultery causes such destruction to society. The family is the bedrock of society. Things that undermine the family, undermine society, and the ultimate result of it, maybe not immediately, you don't even see it, maybe not even in a generation, but after 2 or 3 generations, the chaos that could ensue from that is ultimately much more. So harmful. So there's a very strict punishment. Why? Because that has to be maintained for the well-being of humanity. But that's not something we might ever figure out with our brain. Do you understand? So these are the type of things that does make the emphasis, for example, in the Islamic law is so different than, for example, it is in the Western law. Islamic law, you find, is really a balance between giving the individual freedom, which it recognizes the individual needs freedom, but also we have to be responsible members of society. In the West, we're always struggling to find a balance between those things, and we can never seem to get it. We're always going this way, and it's the same thing with women's rights. It's the same when I started about Rodney King. We forget that in the 1960s, Martin Luther King, right, and Malcolm X were protesting about what? Lynching of black people. Black people were still being lynched in the United States of America in the 1960s. They had segregated buses, segregated schools in the south of the United States of America. Segregation. From George Bush's thing, he was probably alive when all that stuff was still going on. That's America in the 1960s. That is not a long time ago. So these are and now, you know, I'm not saying you can move from one extreme to the other when it comes to racism, but there may be other things like women's rights. Okay? Women, of course, need rights. But women happen to be biologically those section of society that biologically and mentally are equipped the best to bring up the children and to nurture them and to care for them. And it's something that even if you believe in evolution, you've got to admit that. Right? But if you have a whole society whose drive and whose aim is economy, money, get everyone out working, get the women out there, we need more money. If you have more money, then what happens ultimately? You get a disintegration of the family, you get a disintegration of the home, etc., etc. You have consequences. Islam does, in my belief, draw the perfect balance. If it's implemented properly, it draws the balance. Why? Because it's from God, who knows the needs of the human beings. God knows the balance that we don't know. Do you understand? So it is philosophically different, and practically, ultimately, yes, it is different. It is very different.